All right, welcome back, everybody. Big Guy Sports, another episode. And as you can see here, we are joined, very special guest. We've got Nico Christie here, who's one of the creators of Prediction Strike. And if you guys don't know what that is, before you listen to this interview, go check it out on Twitter. Look it up. It's basically for anybody that's addicted to fantasy sports like me and Kobe, as you guys know. And I'm sure Nico's all over the fantasy as well. And so we're excited to have you, Nico. Appreciate you joining us and just kind of first off, like, where did this come from? Like, talk to me about the idea, the background, kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give the whole story. Firstly, thanks for having me. And I'm going to clarify, make sure I give my founders credit. Brad and Devin, both the co-founders, the CEO and the COO, came up with the idea. They coded it into existence. They built the user base and they started to catch sort of the momentum. And I was the first hire once we sort of raised the first round of funding. So I wouldn't say I created it, but I'm definitely finding other ways to add value. And the story is, and Devin and Brad will tell it best, but essentially, Brad was losing a little money in the stock market. It was a few years back, and he said, I wish I could just put my damn money on LeBron. Right? LeBron marched his way to, like, I don't know, whatever it was, like his 9th straight finals appearance at the time.
Something dumb.
And it was like an unrelenting march that was like almost predictable, even though it shouldn't have been. Right? And it was like, I wish I could put my money on that because he's going to do it every postseason. And then Devin was like, I bet you I can code that. And Devin, being a cyber guy, built a small little beta, tested it with his friends, and then released it into the market. And people liked the idea. In fact, I always say the first version of the app was, in essence, like, you can tell it was built in a CEO's garage, right? Not a designer necessarily, but people love the idea so much that it took off. And so the first thing we did was, when we raised this sort of first round of funding that we raised, was put it to work on the product itself to make the product at least almost as cool as the vision and the idea is. So now that we've unveiled that, we've seen a whole new sort of level of growth.
Okay, so Devin and say the founder's name again?
Yeah, it's Devin and Brad.
Devin and Brad, and if I am not mistaken, I know Devin, I believe, goes to Harvard. Is that correct? Or do they both go?
Yeah, no. So Devin's a very mysterious guy. I always tell him that. He graduated Harvard. He actually went to school with my sister there, who introduced me to Devin, which is how I ultimately got connected. And then Devin's actually now in his second year of Harvard Law.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
So he's halfway through law school now, while on top of being the CEO of a venture-backed firm, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And then Brad went to American University and then worked in sort of venture banking, which is great context for this. He worked there for about 3 years and then left to do this full time.
Okay, very cool. I got you. So you said you met Devin through your sister who went to Harvard, and that's kind of how you got going with Prediction Strike?
Yeah, the short story is I was actually interviewing for a sports betting position, like a strategy role at a sports betting firm. It was really a media company sort of venturing into the sports betting space. And I got to the final round and I never heard back, and I was a little ticked. And then it turns out they never went into the space. They never made that move. But my sister had heard that I was interested in the space and was like, my friend that I kind of vaguely know from Harvard is doing something similar. So I set up a Zoom call. Devin couldn't have been a cooler guy. And I had a background in finance and strategy.
Okay.
And I offered just essentially pro bono consulting services, a way to help out the company. And I quickly added value through networking and through sort of adding structure to how we do things and forecast and make the product better.
Right.
And then once we closed that round, which was shortly after, I got a full-time offer and haven't looked back.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, my buddy introduced me kind of to Prediction Strike and what you guys are about just a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, this is amazing. Cause I'm obviously, everybody wants to make money, right? And like, if you're a fantasy addict like myself, it's kind of a bad obsession at this point with too many leagues. And my co-host Kobe is the same exact way. And it's just like, this is an incredible idea. And when I first heard about it, I was like, wait, you're buying players? And he told me about it. And my roommate actually was the one that started. And he was like, yeah, like I just bought 200 shares of TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And he showed me the app and kind of ran me through it. And then Hawkinson ended up booming like those first 2 weeks of the season. And then he sold.
I think in the first 3 weeks, he went up like 180% or something, like 200.
Yeah.
Went from like $57 to $2.
Absolutely. Like yeah. Remarkable and stuff. And it's just like, it's such a cool idea. And like I said, I appreciate you joining us, but a couple more questions. So like, how long did it take to get off the ground?
So the unveiling was at a chaotic time. The platform was launched in the fall of 2019.
Okay.
And you know what happened shortly after that? We
Yeah.
had COVID come slam us all.
Yeah.
So we unveiled, it was a super exciting time. And then all of the sports world froze. And Brad and Devin looked at each other like, are we done? Like, is this it? Like,
Yeah.
I thought this was what we were going to do, and sports might never come back. You know, who knows? So they pressed pause. And then they actually paused all the way until the NBA bubble resumed.
Okay.
I mean, to the bubble sort of took off until it became its own thing.
Right.
And then that's where the growth really started to kick in. So people with the bubble really got back into sports. It had been a while without sports. And they got to watch like Damian Lillard, who killed it in the bubble. My Miami Heat, I'm from Miami, do exceptionally well. And the players there do super well. And then people got really excited. And then once that bubble was over, it was about having that first NFL season come back, and we just sort of kept building momentum.
Okay. You got to tell Jimmy Butler to get on prediction strike by himself, huh?
Oh, no, of course, man. Big Jimmy Butler fan.
Yeah, no doubt. What was I going to say? Oh, crap. I can't remember. So I guess for the people listening that aren't familiar with prediction strike, that's what I was going to say real quick before we get to that. So I was going to ask, can you tell like how many users you guys have on the app, or is that kind of, does that vary, or is it just not really?
Yeah. So us being the actual company, we know always how many users we have, how many people are investing in who, how many orders there are for certain players, and so on. As a private company, we don't share that, obviously, because competitors can sort of benchmark you.
Right.
But we have many, many thousands of people who use the app and love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm doing my best. I'm telling kids, like, today in class, actually, he was like, hey, can you do this? I was like, no, I've got a Zoom meeting with you, as I said your name. And he's like, what is prediction strike? And I pulled up the app, and he's like, wait, I can buy Tom Brady? I was like, you can buy Tom Brady?
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I guess just to give it from sort of the horse's mouth, prediction strike is the stock market for sports. You can invest in athletes just like stocks. You can buy, sell, trade whenever and make money when they do well or when they're in demand. So
that was kind of
as simple as it sounds.
Leading to my next question. So for those listening that are interested in prediction strike, not really knowing what's going on, give us like exactly how it works, how the app works, how you buy, like the rates and how people drop and whatnot.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, let's pick a player.
Luka Doncic.
All right. So Doncic has these projections, right? He's projected, I don't know, say 30 fantasy points a night, which is sort of the net stat that is sort of surmised from his points, his assists, his rebounds, turnovers, and whatnot. What happens is he's sort of pegged, that's his expectations at that spot. But if you know, because you're a Luka Doncic fan and you think he lost 20 pounds this offseason and he's stopped smoking hookah overseas, if you think that he's going to outperform expectations and be better than that, then for every bit that he's better than the expectations, his stock price rises. So for example, imagine someone is projected 12 or 10 fantasy points, but gets 12. They beat expectations by 20% and their stock price raises by sort of a factor of that.
Okay.
So in that essence, is as simple as that. So how do you play? You can do long-term buy and holds or day trades. If you think this rookie who was drafted in the second round is going to have a stellar career and his projections are nothing that first season, you can get in right then and buy 300, 500, whatever amount of shares of that player and hold it until he becomes an all-star in 5 years. Or on the other side, you can see that Damian Lillard is matched up against the Nuggets and Campazzo is like too short to guard him and you think he's going to beat expectations that night, then you can buy a lot of shares that night and day trade. So that's how it works. There's also supply and demand factor. So as people are buying shares, when they're hot, the stock price rises. That's sort of another factor that influences prices, but it's really just those two things.
Yeah. Okay. And then if I've got this right, for every 100 shares bought of a player, it raises their stock price 1%. Is that something like that? Is that correct?
It's something very similar. It's for every 300 shares bought, the price rises 1%. That's the current algorithm for supply and demand. As we're scaling, sort of that gets tweaked behind the scenes, but that's really it.
Okay. And then can you buy, is there a certain number of shares you can buy, or can you just keep going? Like, could I buy 1,000 shares of somebody?
Yeah. So you can buy 300 at a time.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're sort of unveiling a finite share model. So there's going to be a set amount of shares of every single athlete and a sort of obviously a market cap therefore associated with that athlete. So yeah, you won't be able to buy an infinity amount of shares of an athlete because there won't be an infinity amount in the market.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. So, I mean, there you guys have it. Like right there. Listen to that. If you love the stock market, you're smart with that. take your tactics and do it with athletes because it's way more fun than trading Walmart. So let's go trade some stores.
Yeah, that's how we think about it. There's like a lot of different avenues to get excited about it. Like if you're an investor, right? Say you love trading on Robinhood, and yeah, you're interested in reading the earnings report for Walmart or for Disney. Like that's cool, right? But most people would tend to think that they not only know a little bit more, but are more excited about their favorite player on their favorite team. The other aspect of it, there's this whole from even a sports betting perspective, we are not gambling in the sense where we are not this binary outcome where you either lose all your money or gain all your money. We're much more similar to investing, right? Where you might go up 3, 4, 5, 6, 10%, or down 4, 5, 6%, depending on how companies / players perform. So in that sense, it's almost like a much less riskier form or alternative of betting. And then there's also the whole crypto route where it's like we are this alternative asset class. That may or may not be a lot more easy to understand than like buying a JPEG of a monkey.
Right.
You know? So yeah. there's something for everybody there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of another question on the platform. Do you guys set the price of the players, or does like the demand of the player kind of increase to that? So like I was looking at it, and LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards are like the highest priced NBA players. And I believe it's like 22 and roughly 16. So are you guys setting that price, or is that like just how many people?
So what happened was those two players just crushed it last year, right? Yeah. I was excited about LaMelo entering the league because it was just a spectacle, but I didn't think he was going to be a rookie of the year, and neither did the market, right? So his projections weren't as good as he ended up being. So he ended up, I think, 3 or 4 or 5xing, and that's his current share price because he crushed it.
Got it.
Eventually, what we did in the very beginning is we picked prices based on the actual raw projections of the player. So like LeBron would have been high and rookie would have been low.
Yeah.
But it's evolved over time.
Right.
And essentially, if certain players don't make sense because of, apologies, I'm drinking some soda here. If certain players don't make sense over time, what we do occasionally would be like a reverse stock split or a stock split, so that we would never change the actual value of the player, but that the price is past the sort of smell test. You know?
Okay, I got you. Yeah, for sure. No, I saw you guys' tweet today too. I just went and bought some Rashad Bateman before we started this podcast because I think he's going to crush it too. You know, I got to get somebody to throw to.
Yeah, and you know what's been good validation is we see that the sophisticated users, the people who really know sports, drastically outperform the people who are just in it to have fun.
Right. You know? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, like you said, it like the basic like definition. It's the sports market or the stock market for athletes, and it's like you.
Exactly that.
Yeah, and if you can,
we actually call it like it's like one of the taglines. It's like it's almost like DraftKings and like Robinhood had a baby.
Yeah,
like, it's exactly what you would imagine if you had to imagine being able to invest in athletes. You know,
I mean, for me personally, like it's so much more exciting than like going to like your portfolio on, like you said, Robinhood or whatever. You're like, oh great, you know, Boeing took a hit today. I'd rather talk about like, oh, Christian McCaffrey took a hit today. That's way more entertaining.
Exactly, and you're not playing against. Like I'm a reasonable adult who invests in the stock market. I have a 401k and a Roth and blah, blah, blah. However, it's something almost reassuring to know that I'm not 100% allocated towards a stock market in which we're, I don't know, $20 trillion in debt and we have a looming crisis, and we had the crisis in Afghanistan and the situation in China and Taiwan and the chip shortage. And like, there's a lot of things that we have to trade on as like investors.
Yeah.
That we are going against really sophisticated pros against in the stock market, as opposed to like, Mitch, you might know more about the Seahawks than like really anyone else, maybe, you know, like that could be your niche, and that's what you should be taking advantage of if it's your space, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wish I was a Seahawks fan, but unfortunately I'm a Jets fan. So, you know, I'm hoping my long hold on Zach Wilson starts to boom here pretty soon, but it's not looking too bright for me.
I don't know. I don't think he did too hot either.
No, his 4 interception game wasn't good for me, and it wasn't good for anybody else. So
no, definitely not good for anyone on Prediction Strike. Him and Trevor Lawrence have not had the hottest starts.
No, yeah, Lawrence is. I think they'll turn around. I mean, well, I hope so as a fan, and obviously somebody that's going to invest in those players. But couple questions. Other questions we got. What are you guys buying right now? So like people listen, if they're getting started, who do you recommend to go buy?
You know, so this is not financial advice, right? How I would see this, I'm going to fix my light here. Who I would recommend to buy? I mean, I just have some favorite athletes, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm a big believer in John Morant. I think he's a stud. I'm a big believer in Donovan Mitchell. I know he's a stud, and I also think he's the type of sort of character to actually continue to work and get better over time,
For sure.
and to sort of improve at a rate that other people probably don't improve at, right? Like he taught himself how to shoot, which is like something that most NBA players can't figure out,
Yeah.
right? Trying to think who in the NFL, like I think Joe Burrows is going to be a stud. I still think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a stud. Like I liked a lot of those buy and hold strategies. And then if I was more into football, I'd be able to day trade those guys better. I'm more of a basketball fan myself. But for example, like that analogy I had with Damian Lillard, like he did absolutely crush it when he went against the Nuggets. Like it wasn't an anomaly to me. It was something that I was more or less able to expect, you know?
Okay. So going to NBA side, I guess things you said that's kind of your focus. So are you more into the day trading, or are you long hold and waiting on these guys to become all-stars? Like John Morant, obviously, if you got him young and he's already turned out to be a stud, or are you flipping Damian Lillard once he goes up against old Frankie?
Yeah, I've been flipping NBA players, that's for
Yeah.
sure. For in the football space, I've been buying and holding.
Okay.
Obviously, as someone who's at the company, I'm not trying to have too much of my own money in there. It's you can argue I have like insider information, even though the truth is you can't, because I don't know how these athletes are going to perform,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
the algorithm we have is publicly available. So it's just almost something I want to keep to myself, though. Like
No doubt.
I'd rather not make people suspicious that I have thousands of dollars in there, you know, which is not something I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I just recently I saw some Michael Porter Jr. was a little bit lower than I thought, so I bought shares of him because
Oh man.
I think he showed out last year, kind of what he can do. And then
Yeah, it's gonna be about where the market prices him, because like he is cheap right now.
yeah, it's
So especially
169.
yeah, and they just put, and I think he's already up like 10% or something because of the demand. They saw his contract. He like got
Yeah.
the super max, which was honestly crazy. Like
No, it's like $210 million if he becomes an all-star or something
it's
too.
a Steph Curry deal, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like he's not. It's just crazy. I think the issue is that they should just not have a max. You know, like
Yeah.
if Steph Curry should get paid more, and then you wouldn't have to like fill it up with 3 max players a team. But whatever. Yeah, he's probably someone who's going to be great. I wonder where his projections are going to fall this year, because he's shown in limited minutes he can be a superstar.
Right.
But it's hard to know if he's going to be healthy, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what you said about the projections thing. And I looked at when you guys tweeted out the Bateman thing, I went and checked it out, and it's Bateman's only projected for 2.4 points. And I'm like, that's a layup. Like, there's no way.
No, there's real opportunity for arbitrage. Like most of the players we call out in our stories, we have like a fantasy football expert called Luke Sawhook who like helps do a lot of our social, but he'll all the time tell us like, there's no way these players aren't going to do well. And like, he's right, like at least 60% of the time, you know?
Right.
Which in investing, if you can pick the right company, 52% of the time, you're doing well, you know?
Exactly. No doubt. Couple more for you here. So we've got NBA and we've got NFL for on the app right now for Prediction Strike. What is what's the future looking like? I've heard some talk about UFC potentially, maybe some F1 in there. What do we got for that?
Yeah, so I mean, we've announced it now. We have partnered with Vayner Sports, which represents a ton of like super talented MMA fighters and legends. And we're going to be producing content with these fighters, and we're also going to be launching the UFC on our platform for the November 6th card, UFC 268 at Madison Square Garden.
So we're going to be coming up.
We'll be at Madison Square Garden for that. We'll have it on our platform in about a month, just prior to the actual event, so that you can have enough time to buy your favorite fighters.
Right.
And that's going to be the next sport.
Okay, that's pretty sweet. So, is it going to be kind of how's that going to work? I guess for UFC.
Yeah, it's a good question because it's different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to price myself all 1,200 fighters on the roster. There's more fighters on the roster than you'd think. But essentially, what we did is it's more or less tied to rankings of the fighters themselves, where you can sort of bucket like all of the number 1 contenders are going to be priced roughly the same. Same through number 15 contenders, and same with the champs. And then you'll have buckets of sort of prices amongst the unranked fighters, right? So like not all unranked fighters are the same, right? Like a Sean O'Malley, who's almost a 15th ranked, is not the same as a fighter who just got signed to the UFC, who has never fought like professionally, you know, or in the big leagues. So once those prices are set, they're going to move in a similar fashion. So they're moving based on how they perform in the fight. So for example, say 2 fighters of the same share price fight, one that wins might go up 30, 40, 50, 60%, and the one that loses might go down by that same amount. However, for example, if someone who's a $5 share price fights a $10 share price and the $5 wins, they're going to win. I mean, they're going to increase at an accelerated rate. And if the $10 wins, they're going to increase at a marginal rate because they were expected to win that fight.
Right.
Sort of what you would imagine. And what we did is we back tested it against a lot of historical data to make sure that throughout all fight history at the UFC, if we had our algorithm in place, it would sort of pass the test if you compared it to the UFC rankings at that same moment in time.
Okay. That's interesting. That'll be sweet. I mean, I'm not super in depth in UFC, but I've got a buddy that is like UFC as it gets to the bone. So he would probably jump over.
Yeah, I wasn't into UFC really until at 2015 or end of 2014 maybe. My fraternity went to like this big sports bar to watch the Conor McGregor fight. He was like fighting, it might have been Jose Aldo, and I was like, we just watched it and I like put $20. I was like, let's say Conor wins because I knew his name.
Yeah.
And it was like the craziest event ever. And then from that moment, like I was super into it. And like, I'm not someone like I guess I wrestled in high school, but like combat sports never immediately made sense to me. But it's just as competitive as anything could possibly be.
Yeah,
so in that sense, it's just so cool to watch like what real competition looks like. Like you can watch an NBA player and be like, this guy, like, no hate to my favorite team, but we had a center who was 7 foot tall, who like, you probably know who this is. I think he's closer to your home state now. Who just oftentimes would take quarters off. Like he wouldn't try to get a rebound. He'd get upset, like get a tag.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. But it's like that would never happen in a UFC fight.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, you put your hands down, you get knocked out. Like
exactly. So I love the competition aspect of it.
Yeah,
and as I've watched over the years, I've gotten to like understand the sport, and it's really a really cool sport.
It is. I mean, I always talk to my buddies about it. It's like you have to be born like pissed off, I swear, to be like a UFC guy. Like
I think you have to have a screw loose. And I mean that in like a respectful way. Like you have to be willing and okay to take a hit.
Yeah, no doubt. You guys should put on like the prediction strike, like $1 million minute. See it, you can buy Mitch Dean if he can last a minute with Conor McGregor, and then you can win a bunch of money or something.
I like to think of myself as an athlete, but I don't think I'd last a minute with anybody.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, those guys are nuts, and that'll be sweet though. So you guys are headed to the fight, is that right? So in November you'll be at the fight.
Yeah, God willing, we'll be able to. New York will still host the event, and we'll be able to go and be there in Madison Square Garden.
That's legit. That's pretty showtime. So we've got UFC coming up. Is there F1 talk? Is that a thing?
There is F1 talk. Coincidentally, my two co-founders, Brad and Devin, are huge F1 fans. And like we'd like to get into sort of these like money sports where like it's more individual. So think like tennis, golf, F1, racing. Right. So that's on the horizon for sure. I think the short-term plan is we're going to add probably like baseball.
I would be in for the baseball.
And we want to get soccer if we can sort of get it done right prior to the World Cup, which would be exciting.
Yeah. Okay. And so for each sport, do you guys have to write a different algorithm, or the algorithms stay the same?
So a lot of sports are sort of like a one-to-one fit with the fantasy model, right? So think MLB is going to be very similar to basketball. NHL is going to be very similar to basketball. Some sports will be different. So like my guess is we'll create them as they go, and we'll make sure they're super transparent for our users. But individualistic sports might take a form more similar to UFC. So imagine tennis, imagine even F1. So yeah, we'll have to continue to get creative.
Yeah. Okay. So when that happens, I'll have to long hold my guy Max Verstappen and see if we can get some money out of it.
Yeah, and for a lot of these individual sports, it's such a fun new concept because like as an MMA fan, for example, like I was never even risk tolerant enough to gamble in the first place. Like I've never really bet on fights, even though I watch a lot of fights. Like it's a way to engage with your favorite athlete more frequently. So for example, like if I liked Conor McGregor, I had to wait between 2018 and 2021 or 2020 to even place a bet on him. Mm-hmm. But if you're buying and holding, their share price moves every day because of supply and demand. When Conor posts a crazy tweet, like he might go up 10% that day or go down 10% that day.
Okay, so that has an effect on him too, huh?
Well, what it is we didn't like hard code these sort of inputs where it's like Twitter and followings. Like that's not what it is. But those things are a proxy for supply and demand, right? Like when Conor says something that might be super exciting or super horrendous, people might say, I'm dumping this guy. Like I'm selling this guy shares because he's crazy, or maybe I'm buying them because he's low, whatever it is. All of that affects supply and demand, and then therefore the share price.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Very cool. So UFC, F1, we got some more sports on the way. That'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to the baseball one because I'm in on the baseball. That's kind of my go-to. So I think there's some rookies that I would love to put some money in.
For sure. Well, fantasy baseball, for example, is bigger than fantasy basketball.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. That was news to me.
Okay.
But there's 160 something games a season. Like if you are a day trader and and you're following your team and your favorite athletes, there's probably the most arbitrage opportunity in baseball potentially.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, like think about it. I'm gonna go put I'm gonna go buy 100 shares of Max Scherzer right now when he's throwing against the Marlins. Then you can flip him in.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just I didn't even mean. I forgot you're a Miami guy. I didn't even.
I know, it's fine. No, the Marlins beat baseball fandom out of me. Even though I was alive for 2 World Series somehow.
Hey, there you go. Hey, and they were one of like, I think they're the only team 2 of the 3 times they've been in the playoffs, they've won the World Series. So it's like, hey,
it was like both times we were the wild card.
Yeah. Don't let them get hot. Don't let the boys get hot down in Miami.
Yeah, you can't let them somehow squeeze in there.
Yeah. Real quick before I let you get going here, are you guys your fantasy points, like the projections and stuff, are you using your own site to project that, or like, because I mean there's like full PPR, there's half PPR, there's standards?
Yeah, I need to be able to sort of explain that, like what is the source, but we have a data provider and we don't update them for ourselves at all. We have like a well and common used data provider, and we use the same exact metrics. We don't change those projections at all.
Okay, yeah, because I've most of my fantasy sports I play on the Sleeper app, and I have
I'm on Sleeper right now. We're actually doing something crazy. We have we have like 10 people on a Sleeper app, like a lot of Prediction Strike insiders, like and sort of friends of the show and our stuff, and we all put in $20 into I think it was either Brian Edwards or Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
And the winner's going to get all of those shares at the very end.
Oh, there you go. If it's like, Brian Edwards, he's moving.
Yeah, so we all put it on a player that like we thought might be going up. So it's like kind of a fun way to do the whole pool concept,
Yeah, absolutely. No, if my roommate heard that, he'd probably jump out of his room because he's a huge Brian Edwards guy.
Yeah, he's popular. I think he's like one of our top 10 most held players on the app.
Is he really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know he had like, there's like a thing they do for all guys coming out, and it's like their peak year or whatever, like when they were supposed to be like the most dominant.
Yeah.
He was like 18 years old. So it's like, this dude should be dominating the league right now, but he's just getting healthy. So
there you go.
Yeah. All right. I got a couple more questions before I let you go and take up too much of your time. And you might not be able to answer this, and that's totally okay. Do you have any locks of the week for our fantasy football addicts out there? Like if they're looking to day trade somebody come Sunday morning, who are we going for? But I know you said you're not a huge NFL guy, you're more NBA, but
yeah, remember this is not financial advice. When is it? I think Burrows plays Thursday, and I'm thinking
Burrow does play tomorrow night. Yeah, and I've got some Jamar Chase in there. So
yeah, I think he's turning it around. That's my guess. If you really want to lock, ask our guy Luke Sawhook on Twitter. He'll give you a couple of locks. But that's my go.
All right, so we heard it here. Nico says Joe Burrow. Go spend your money on Joe Burrow. If not,
that's your words.
Yeah, I'll refund you. No, I won't. I don't have that kind of money. And then I guess we kind of already hit on that. I was gonna say best strategy, but you were kind of saying it just depends on what you want to do. You can do the long hold, you can do the day trading, just whatever.
Yeah, it comes down to what kind of fan and where your knowledge lies.
Yeah.
And like if you believe in the platform also, as we grow, obviously demand will continue to scale. So there's value in being an early adopter also.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I would say, I think like you were saying, and me and you both agree, like the basketball, when baseball comes on the app, will definitely be more of a day trading kind of a thing, where I think the football is kind of the long-term hold.
Oh, for sure. It'll be much more difficult to buy and hold baseball. Like it's just by nature of the sport.
Exactly. I mean, you could, if you, for example, let's see who we got, buy and hold Adley Rutschman, who drafted, 3 years ago. And it's like, you're waiting and waiting. Like he could be a AAA all-star, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm imagining a lot of those farm players that the Marlins religiously sell their best players for, like maybe getting them the moment they hit the league and waiting a few years. That's always possible because we hit sometimes on that, and then we immediately sell them again. But yeah, that's besides the point.
Absolutely. Well, man, I won't keep you for too much longer. I really appreciate this. I hope maybe we could do this again, kind of get back and going, and hopefully you guys can come on the podcast more often.
Sure, man.
And whatnot. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Feel free to have me anytime. Let's I should have told you, but I made a promo code with my team for Big Guy.
Really?
Is the code. So if you use code Big Guy when you download the app from the App Store, it's not case sensitive, so it doesn't matter how much they want to capitalize that. If they use Big Guy, they will get a free random athlete share when they deposit 20 or more when they sign up.
Hey, let's go. You guys heard it here first. Use your promo code Big Guy from the App Store. When you spend 20 more, you get a free share of a random athlete, and that guy could hit and buy you some big money. I actually shared the app a couple days ago with one of my buddies from back home, and I went to my portfolio and I was like, I didn't buy any Matt Ryan. He's like, oh no, I got you a free share.
Yeah.
Hey, well, take it. So
exactly. Yeah, you should be getting an email now when you get a little referral gift.
Awesome,
yeah,
man.
and you can definitely get a share up to even $30 now. So when
Sweet,
it's
let's
a nice little
go.
incentive.
Well, like we said, you guys heard it here. That's Nico Christie at Prediction Strike. You know, he's got the stuff for us. He's got all the information. We've got NBA, NFL, and then, like you said, UFC's coming in hot. So appreciate you joining the show, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Of course, Mitch. Hey, Mitch, it was great to meet you. Thanks for having me, man.
You bet. Absolutely. Take it easy.